So everybody, good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here for several reasons, right? But I think one of them is to just get the opportunity to gather feedback from all of you. At events like the one from last night, where we get to talk and understand all the pains that you're going through as you transform, as you get a little bit disrupted, right? But also to witness a company like Ingram, right? Talk about being able to deal with disruption, right? Ingram is a Fortune 100 company, right? And for some of us that have been in the industry for, say, 15, 20 years, how many times, just a quick show of hands, how many times have you heard that IT distribution was going to be completely disintermediated and no longer be relevant, right? Somehow Ingram just continues to be there and offering some amazing services, right? And what Renee just showed is Ingram essentially really becoming a software company with hundreds of coders around the globe, developing intellectual property, some of it for free for you to use in exchange for your loyalty, right? And one of the things that I like about my role at Microsoft and having spent 75% of my career outside of Microsoft is that I really haven't found a company as Microsoft that just has hard-coded and in the DNA the concept of partnerships, right? So running a worldwide distribution business that through companies like Ingram, we reach companies like you, and being supported by engineering, by product development, by marketing campaigns that are all developed with the simple concept of let's always find a way to bring partners in, really makes our job much easier. And it starts with our CEO, Satya Nadella, who 4 years ago almost, took the helm of the company. We've only really had 3 CEOs in our entire history, right? And this was one of his first messages. It's like, look, we are a partner-led company, and we will always be a partner-led company. And one of the missions that came out of this statement was to develop a platform that our partners can use to scale. And that became the CSP platform that is now almost 4 years old, right? And among the feedback that I'm gathering at this event, just watching Ingram's demos, there seems to be a very, very strong interest. I don't know if you all noticed at checkout, that there's always Microsoft and Dropbox together with each other. So I think Ingram is onto something. So I think Thomas Hansen, who I saw him in the room earlier today, and I should get together and come up with an offer for all of you that are attending this event to go back and communicate to your customers. We're going to be working on that and come back to you very, very soon. But anyways, Microsoft has been historically partner-led, and that's why when the title of this presentation is We've Been Disrupted, it's not just Microsoft being disrupted or Ingram being disrupted, it's all of us being disrupted, right? And finding ways to capitalize on the opportunities that are out there. Now, I don't plan to do a presentation where I describe a bunch of Microsoft programs because I think there are plenty of sessions that you have here that you're going to see that. I'm going to try my very best to not say the word Azure. That's going to be very difficult for me. But I think the way Ingram covered it is very, very adequate to where we see opportunities in the market for you, right? But I do want to take a step back and tell you a little bit of what we're seeing in terms of all the disruption that's going on in the market and how that applies to all of us in this room. So if we think a little bit about the concept and the context, right? There are 2 very important phrases that Dr. Schwab is using here to describe what this new world is bringing out for all of us, right? Basically, what the World Economic Forum sees is this massive, amazing pipeline of technological innovation being unleashed at a speed like never before. So we're talking about artificial intelligence being enabled in every single app that we're using today. It's not just about clicking on an app, it's about having feedback from that app, automation of processes in that app. It's about drones. Drones that, for example, Renee's mom could use to pick up a product at a store, right? Drones that now cost $450 and can carry weight, heavy weight, right? It's about 3D printing, right? What does that mean for healthcare when all of a sudden a hospital can print a liver and execute a liver transplant, right? Who regulates that? How do we determine what that means and how do we continue to be in a safe environment. So a quick show of hands, with this context all around us and happening outside of this room, who sees this as a time of great peril, of great danger? So quick show of hands. All right? Who sees this as a time of great promise? Good. The reason why is you can take two angles to look at this, right? And I think Renee mentioned a little bit about this. There is a material disruption happening in jobs, right? There's several forecasts, this is not the only one, that state that the net impact on jobs can be exponentially higher or exponentially lower. So there isn't a real consensus as to what that means in terms of net job creation. But there is a consensus on the direction that the jobs are going. They're going away from anything that can be automated, right? And we might have seen this before in other industrial revolutions. But now, all the back office type of jobs that can be replaced by artificial intelligence, by robots, are at a high likelihood of being automated very, very soon. On the other hand, we see places like the US, and again, I don't want to get into politics either, but with the real massive shortage of technology jobs, right? The good news, based on the profile of the audience in this room, is that there's still going to be a very, very strong need for sales jobs, right? That's good for all of us here. Now, what does that mean in terms of opportunity? Why do I personally feel that this revolution brings more opportunity than dangers for us? Is because IT, all of us in this room, have been kind of restricted to 3.5 to 4.5% of the GDP, right? That's basically what our industry represents across several different countries, right? But the way every single company now is becoming a technology company, all of a sudden, we in this room are tapping into almost 100% of the GDP. So the fact that Ingram, a company that is a leader in IT wholesale, is now a software company, right, with actual intellectual property being deployed, is a clear example of that, right? And there are many industries that are going along that same direction. Now, in my previous role at Microsoft, I was in a very much a customer-facing environment, so in emerging markets. So I probably visited 100 to 150 customers in a span of 3 years, plus all the different meetings that we would have in larger groups, right? And digital transformation is kind of a generic term for what the customers are trying to do. What they're really trying to do, in my humble opinion, is they're trying to run their business and transform their business at the same time. And this is where I think they're asking all of us in this room to help them. They don't have all the answers, right? But what they don't want is to be Uberized or Netflix, like the presentation that we're going to see in a little bit, right? They don't want a new company to come out of the blue with the new seamless business model, which, by the way, offers amazing customer service to just capture and take away their business. So they're looking for answers on how to optimize costs, how to grow the business. And they're looking back at the IT role, which only a couple of years ago was kind of neglected to a maintenance function in the companies, to help lead that transformation. So at Microsoft, we believe that our role is to provide systems of intelligence. I'm going to try very hard not to say Azure, but our role is to provide this system of intelligence that enable customers to do what they really want to do. They want to transform their product through IoT. They want insights to basically offer preventative maintenance to their customers, right? They want to be able to engage their customers. So through social engagement tools, how do they scan all social media to understand what is being said about them at blogs, Facebook, Twitter, and react? So we don't have an incident like the one we saw, I think, about 2 weeks ago with the major airline, right? Which was a major PR fiasco, as some of you know. They want to empower their employees. Employees cannot stay no longer stuck to a desk. Employees are working from anywhere. But they need access to the same exact information in a very, very secure environment, right? We see companies that, for example, there's a case of a retailer that they used one of these instant messaging tools to help foster better communication with their retail stores. Now, the problem, it was a consumer app, right? And as people left that organization, did not update the list. And some of those people went to work for competitors. So they kept receiving the messages and instant messaging of all the promos those retailers were doing. And what would they do? They would go back to their store, change their strategy, run their own promos, and be able to attack and secure market share. So it's about empowering employees, but with security. So going back to my initial point that we've been disrupted, right? A couple of weeks ago, I was at an event with actually some of the technology companies that are here too, where we saw a keynote from J.B. Wood. I don't know how many of you read the book Consumption Economics. He just published another one where he talks about technology being offered as a service, period, right? And basically the concept that we are seeing in technology is the same exact one that our customers are seeing. Historically, we just sold the product. We built the product, shipped it, sold it, collected the money, and that was it. Today, when you ship the product, when the customer receives the product, that's when the cycle begins. Because if the customer is not consuming the product, if the customer is not satisfied with the product, especially technology, which is being offered as a service, there's churn. And you know what? You probably lose your entire profit if that customer is no longer securing services from you. He did a pretty nice benchmark that might be a little bit difficult to read, but if you look at the left-hand side, right, he basically looked at the top 50 technology and services organizations, let's say the more of the traditional ones like Microsoft and a couple of others, and he noticed that over the span of 12 months, right, back in 2015, those companies lost $17 billion in revenue. While at the same time, the newcomers, the top 20 born in the cloud companies, gained almost $3 billion in revenue. So a completely disproportionate growth rate. One side growing 28, almost 30%, the other one dropping. But on the other hand, what is really putting pressure and disrupting a lot of us here is that the companies that are growing still weren't profitable. On average, they were sustaining significant operating income losses, while the companies that were the laggards were still in double-digit operating income. So what that means is that this new as-a-service model still hasn't demonstrated that it can be profitable for everybody. So this is why we take certain actions, and what we like to do today, and the way we run our business, and because we were disrupted, and we also transformed gradually to enable customers to source our product in an as-a-service model, is we looked at the business in 3 separate buckets, let's put it that way, right? So if you look at the number here in 2017, let's assume that in December of 2017, our business combined is indexed at a value of 100, right? There's a significantly large piece of that is already sourced in an as-a-service model, which is purely consumption-based. Customers pay for what they use, period. If they don't use, they don't pay. We don't collect. The lion's share of the business is still legacy, is still on-prem, hardware, everything else. There is no crime, this is something that we've learned, in having a legacy business. Now, if you don't do anything about it, then yes, then you're wasting away your installed base. Right? So that's the first step that we've decided to take, is make sure that we do not waste our installed base. As an inspiration, there's a quote from a American Hall of Fame baseball player, Yogi Berra, also a part-time philosopher, which I think he says it very, very clear, right? If you're not careful in knowing where you're going, you're just not going to get there, right? And that's the threat, is that somebody Uberizes your legacy and takes that away from you, right? And I'm going to show you later on why the legacy is important. Not only is it the base of your business, but it's also your most profitable and highest probability of success, right? On the consumption side, this is also very important. This is a thing that we learned the hard way, I would say. The key driver is how you compensate your people. You can't expect your teams to do something when they're paid to do something completely different. This is what Upton Sinclair was talking about back in the 1900s. I think he was referring to public service or something, but that was his point. It's like, how can you expect somebody to do something different if you're paying them to do something else, right? And the point here is not necessarily paying for somebody to go out and sell cloud services. The point, maybe, is to pay somebody to make sure that the customer is really satisfied and doesn't churn. Because mathematically, if that customer churns before 18 months, you've eroded a substantial part of your profits that took you so hard to build this business. And then last but not least, devices. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to sell devices, but the amount of devices that our customers, your customers, are going to be bringing online from now until 2020 is going to be massive. And it's not just laptops, smartphones. It's all these sensors that are going to probably be in an IoT environment, and that they're going to want your help, our help, in gathering insights from so they can make better decisions, transform their products. So when you combine all these three different opportunities in a structured way, there is a path, a clear path, for all of us to grow double digits over the next couple of years, while at the same time being disrupted. Now, what we do at Microsoft, and we've been doing this already for a couple of years, is we've been over-pivoting our incentives towards cloud, right? Some of it towards consumption, some of it towards cloud sales. So if you look at over the course of 5 years, right, we started at 10%. Fiscal year 18 for us ends in June of this year, this calendar year, right? That number is probably going to be north of 60%. Now, our revenue is not 60% cloud today. So we are over-pivoting with cloud incentives in order to help you take that step, secure that initial profit, so you can also accelerate your business and capture this opportunity. But again, the most important thing is you have an installed base. If you've been in this business for more than 5 years, you have an installed base. If you've been in this business for 3 years, you have an installed base that is not in the cloud, that is not sourcing product as a service yet. Look at some of these numbers. There's several research that you can find on this matter. The percentages may vary, but the message is exactly the same. Your probability of being successful with an existing customer is 70%. Your probability to sell more to an existing customer than you would to a new customer is 31%. So the message here is that we've also learned is nurture the legacy, because that is your most profitable path to the as-a-service disruptive model that exists today. And finally, I only said Azure once yet, and I'm saying it again now. CSP, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is the platform for a partner-led success enablement with customers. And I think Renee mentioned this. What Ingram offers you today is basically a way for you to lower your costs as you join the as-a-service economy, right? When you think of an Azure environment today, if you were to have your own platform and you had to integrate all the APIs, it's more than 100 APIs, easily, that you would have to be integrating. Now, if you then do what everybody should do, which is to work with other suppliers, Symantec, Dropbox, Adobe, those are more APIs. So if you have a partner that can do this for you, that takes away a big chunk of your costs in moving into an as-a-service world and allows you to focus on what's best for your customer, which is differentiate. And how do you learn to differentiate? Just listening to your customer. So it's an environment that's growing. CSP is going to be the main platform for us to do business with you. It's where we're making all of our investments. Over the last couple of years, we've reduced substantially the gap in features, functionality, and services. And we expect that gap to be closed roughly by the end of this year. We're very, very confident that we can do that. So as we add more services to the CSP platform, it's going to become even more important for you to find a way to ride this wave without incurring substantial costs in building a CSP platform. And finally, I want to thank you all for our joint success. Office 365 has been around for almost 7 years now. We're celebrating. We're going to make an announcement very soon, but we know this has been announced back in January. We're at 85 million monthly active subscribers. But the most impressive number is that this continues to grow at a 49%. This business continues to grow at 49% year over year. Not so much by the number of users, but because of the fact that as you, the channel partners, became more entrenched in this business, we're seeing a much higher concentration of premium Office 365 offers with our customers. So the revenue is outpacing the growth in seats, which again helps you become more profitable in an as-a-service world. Now, we have been, and this is just Microsoft, we have been extremely disrupted in this business. We had to open up our ecosystem. We had to work with, as you can see here, Office on iOS ecosystem, Office on Android. If we hadn't done that, we would not have 65 million users from those ecosystems on Office 365. We also know that disruption is constant. And we also know that if we don't constantly update what we offer to customers, we will be disrupted, and we won't even know it. So as we celebrate a $14 billion run rate in cloud, we see this business going to 20 in the next 12 to 15 months. I want to take a moment to just thank you and let you know that we are here. There's a group of 30 of us here from 10 different countries to talk to you, to engage with you, to get feedback on what you need in order to continue to be successful with us. So thank you very much.